Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Sorry for the delays. My pooch is barking, so bear with us. He's very enthusiastic about today's show. He can't get over what a great lineup it is because we are speaking to not only Dr. Marandi, who everyone is always clamoring for, the hardest working man in media. We are also going to be speaking to Taher Dahleh from the PYM, Palestinian Youth Movement. We're going to be speaking to Nathan Robinson and Alec from Civil Core about Woke 1.0. And then we're going to be speaking to Greg Stoker about how this war is going within the U.S. military and why you have people jumping ship, literally jumping ship. But let's see, I want to just move the show along. Obviously, like the stream, obviously subscribe, obviously become Patreon members at patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. But we are pressed for time because of this delay that I'm blaming on Bucky because I couldn't calm him down. And so now we're just going to go with it. But I'm going to bring on Dr. Marandi so we don't waste any time. Okay. Hello, Dr. Marandi. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a great pleasure.
Thank you. I feel bad inviting you because you are so prolific and I always feel like I'm depriving you of sleep. But if you insist, I will move forward with accepting your invitation acceptances.
Of course, it's a great pleasure.
So why don't you start off with asking you about what the latest is in the state of play between Iran and the U.S. right now? What updates there are to share, and what ordinary life is right now like for Iranians?
There's nothing all that new. As you know, Trump is saying that, and his entourage and his people are saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open, and the Iranians are saying it's closed. It is closed for the most part, but the Iranians do allow some ships to go through. So, for example, the Chinese, they are friendly, very friendly to Iran. So when they ask to have their ships pass through, the Iranians maybe they delay them a bit, but they ultimately let them through. Or, for example, the Iraqis, because they did not participate in this war against Iran, they too, their ships are allowed to go through. Some of the other countries, if they do some sort of deal with Iran and try to behave better and to disobey certain U.S. demands, then Iran allows some of their ships to go through, like the Emiratis right now. The Emiratis are, they're behaving better towards Iran after what they've done alongside the others. At the moment, they're behaving better. So sometimes the Iranians let their ships through, the Chinese ships through, the Iraqi ships through. But for example, as far as I know, Saudi ships are not really going through that much.
Right. Yeah.
So the Strait.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
You were saying.
No. Please keep going. You were saying so.
Yeah. I was just. Yeah. So the Saudis, and the Kuwaitis and the Qataris, they're not getting much done. And of course, we're just talking about oil. If you look at the broader picture, very few ships are going through. Before the war, I don't know what the exact numbers were. I've heard between 130 to 180, but whatever, 130 to 180 ships were passing through a day. And now it's much less. I don't know the numbers, but it's I guess it varies between 7 and 8 to, let's say, 15, 20 at most. So the shortages are accumulating. There's helium, there's sulfur, there's fertilizers, there's LNG, and of course there are fuels, there are refined fuels, and all sorts of other products that are just simply not getting through. And the oil that's getting through is not, the crude oil is not nearly as much as before, especially now that the Saudis bombed Sana'a International Airport in Yemen, and the Yemenis have imposed a siege on Saudi Arabia, a counter siege, because the Saudis have imposed a siege on Yemen for years.
Of course.
So because of that, the shortages are even are growing even faster. So that's more or less where we are on that front. Life in Tehran is very normal. If you were to fly into Tehran tonight and then go out tomorrow, just take a taxi and randomly drive around town, you probably would not notice anything. You'd see shops are full, businesses are busy, traffic is heavy, restaurants are full of people. You probably wouldn't see a destroyed building because Tehran is huge, and people would have to take you to places and say you may see something by chance, but it's not likely. And also now they're tearing down all the buildings and rebuilding them, so you wouldn't see them probably anyway. Even if they took you there, most of them are now in the process of being rebuilt. But it is a very pretty city. It's unless there's a lot of pollution, but it's like they take out the trash every night. It's a very clean city. It's a very safe city. A woman can walk anywhere and almost anywhere. I mean, I can't say everywhere. I don't know, but in all the areas of Tehran that I know, a woman can walk alone at 11 p.m. People go to parks and play, families, in the summer because of the heat, and have picnics and play volleyball at 1 a.m. I mean, if you drive by a park late at, but if you go to those businesses and shops and restaurants and ask them how's business doing, I'm pretty sure most of them will say it's not very good. So the economy is down, and the Americans and the Israeli regime, they've bombed. They bombed the industries, they bombed the pharmaceutical factory, they bombed hospitals, schools, apartment blocks. So it's impacted the economy, no doubt. And of course, there's the siege. So it does have an impact. But you wouldn't notice if you came. You wouldn't notice if you came to Tehran and you didn't speak to people.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I do want to go there eventually. So inshallah, that'll happen.
Inshallah, some of our mutual friends have been here, and they seems like it.
Yeah. So wanted to ask you to respond to our great energy secretary, Chris Wright. Here he is on Fox News with Brett Baer responding to questions on who has control over the Strait of Hormuz. So let us take a look at this.
People think it is.
But Mr. Secretary, you can concede, can't you, that the U.S. doesn't have total control over the Strait of Hormuz?
Look, Iran is attempting to hold the world economy hostage and to terrorize their neighbors. They've built up a giant arsenal, so are they causing difficulties in the region? Absolutely. But they have a losing strategy. At the end, that will lead to the collapse of this regime in Iran as their economy gets strangled. But are they causing some difficulties for their neighbors and the world economy? Absolutely. But their ability to cause difficulties are declining. Our ability to escort and bring products out of that region is growing. They have sort of one card, and it's shrinking in size.
That does not sound like total control, but you have live.
Okay, so what say ye? I like the way he avoided the question, but what's your response to this?
I like the way he also framed the question. You don't have total control. I mean, maybe they have like 1%, 2% control. You just have 99 or 98%. But not really. I mean, I think the American government by now is known for its, especially the Trump team is known for its dishonesty. I don't think anyone takes them seriously anymore. And if the United States had no problem and the Strait of Hormuz was effectively open or almost open, then there would be no need for them to say it every day, because life would be normal. And if every day you say, look, everything's fine, people will start saying something's wrong. You don't have to say it all the time that everything is fine. So when they're saying everything is fine, that means it's not fine. You say it once, and then everyone agrees, and people live in the Persian Gulf region. They live in these countries. They'll confirm everything is normal. Lots of people have traveled through the Emirates, through Doha, Qatar. So if it was normal by now, it's not like the Antarctic or the North Pole or anything like that. It's a place where a lot of people have visited or seen or passed through or have contacts with people living here, and they would tell them, yes, everything is now normal if it was truly normal.
Right. Wanted to also ask you about.
But I have to add, and I know this is something that your viewers would already know. They're not. They are politically aware people, but I just want to remind myself and ourselves that Iran didn't start the war. The Strait of Hormuz was normal. Iran did not bomb another country, kill its leaders, kill its kids. On day one, they murdered Ayatollah Khamenei, and they martyred a lot of people. His granddaughter, his daughter. She was going on her way to school because she was a teacher. They murdered all those kids in Minab, 168 little elementary school kids, and also in they bombed on day one. They bombed a sports complex, murdering a lot of teenage girls who were practicing volleyball, and some boys were also in that complex playing football in the city of Lomert, which doesn't get a lot of attention because of Minab. Right. But some of the journalists from abroad went to Lomert and reported, and they use an experimental missile to kill those girls who were playing volleyball.
I thought that the West was so feminist and really cared about women's rights, and how you'd think that they wouldn't want to harm women playing volleyball, women and girls playing volleyball. It's almost like their claims of caring about women's rights are totally hollow and hypocritical and opportunistic and insincere.
Well, the little girls in Minab, the elementary school girls, and the teenagers in Lomert, they're going to grow up to become terrorists and
anyway,
that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, I bring this up a few times, but I still can't get over. You had that guy, Matt Schlapp, who claims to be a Christian, saying that these women and girls who were killed in Minab were going to grow up to wear burqas and not have rights. So thank you for literally.
And I don't know if I can say this, but I think he also said they'll also be RAPD. I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I think maybe
he said that.
I know he said that they wouldn't have like job opportunities. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, it's really, I mean, it's totally stunning. I mean, first of all, burqas are not common in Iran. Even if they were, that doesn't justify killing people, right? I mean, it's so absurd.
Actually, if all the women in Iran wore them, and I know that's exactly what you mean, if they all wore them, it's not his business. But I've never seen a woman in Iran wear a burqa.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know exactly even what it is, because I've never seen people wear it.
Exactly,
but in any case, that's in Gaza, but the thing is that it doesn't matter if it's just something that is against if it's something that the Israeli regime. I mean, of course, he's not a Christian. It's just like Zionists are not Jews. It's just like ISIS and Al Qaeda are not real Muslims. But in any case, if it's for the sake of Israel, they'll find some sort of justification, no matter how outrageous it sounds. In their world, these outrageous statements sound fine among their own community, and that's why they often don't understand how people are disgusted, because they live in their own bubble.
Exactly right. They don't realize that what they're saying is actually incriminating to normal people who see people as human beings. Yeah. No, and someone wrote in the comments, burqas are used in Afghanistan, not Iran. I know. My point is, I was saying that I don't know the stats. I have no idea if some people do, but it's certainly not the norm. And as we just pointed out, it would not make killing them okay. But anyway, Wanted to also ask you about Mohsen Rezai, who was Rezai, is that how I say it?
You're right. Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
Rezai,
fine.
who was recently appointed as Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. He posted on X that Iran, quote, will not reopen the strait until the U.S. ends the war and blockade, releases Iran's frozen assets, and agrees to a region-wide ceasefire, including in Lebanon and Gaza. Until all conditions are met, the strait will remain closed. What is your response to this statement?
I think that this is basically a repeat of Iran's demands. If the MOU basically is saying the same thing. In other words, what he's saying is the Americans have to fully implement the MOU. But Gaza was always a part of the MOU. I think we discussed this on your show before because Gaza was not named.
Right.
But
exactly.
the MOU in Article 1, I don't have a laptop or a tablet or anything in front of me, so I can't look right now. But it said like Lebanon and the other fronts.
Right.
And the reason why Lebanon was named was because there was a war going on at that time. So it was the stress on Lebanon was for that reason. But Gaza was always a part of the demands of Iran. But now they're more explicit. They've included Yemen, Gaza, and Iraq. And remember, I pointed out when he says that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it doesn't mean it's completely closed, but it's closed for those who've worked against Iran, who've waged war against the country, who've killed our kids and our leaders, and who've caused so much damage to the country. But it's not closed to those countries that had nothing to do with the war. But
Right.
it may be a bit slow, the process for getting their ships out or getting ships in because of the military situation. But for others, it's closed and it's going to remain closed.
Right.
So unless Trump goes back and implements the deal that he signed in full, then this is what we're going to have. And I don't think it's sustainable for long. The Iranians are prepared for a very long war until the end of Trump's presidency. That's what they're preparing for. But I don't think it's really all that sustainable because if the global economy continues to go in the direction that it's currently moving in, then I think we're heading towards very dark times because I'm not an economist, of course, and I'll refrain from going too much into detail. But the bond market in the United States is not in good shape, and the Japanese yen is on the decline, and there's deep concern about where this is going to take Japan and thus the U.S. bond market. And the situation in Japan has been going on for years, but what's going on now in the Persian Gulf region is making it much worse. And then you have the Persian Gulf regimes; they are in deep trouble, and this situation is not sustainable forever. They need oil and gas wealth a lot because they have nothing else. It's not like Iran or the United States or many other countries. These countries are just deserts.
Right.
And so without the oil and gas, they have nothing left. And they brought this upon themselves by assisting the United States in the war. And they've really, not only have they given bases to the United States, but they pay for the U.S. presence in those bases. All U.S. expenses in those bases are paid for by the government. And of course, in time of war, the expenses go up. So these countries need a lot of money, but they're not exporting much, and they consume a lot of wealth because they are very much dependent on a lot of oil and gas income. So U.S. allies in the region cannot continue like this for a very long time. And Trump was expecting trillions of dollars, as he milks these Arab family dictatorships. He was expecting $2 trillion for the AI industry in the United States, and now there's nothing going to the United States, and money is going to have to come back if the Americans allow it, because these countries don't have, they're not making money, so they have to use their reserves.
Right.
So this is, there's so many reasons why we're heading towards very troubling times, but for the time being, this is how things are.
Right. I wanted to ask you, shifting gears a little bit. I mean, it's related, but it was reported this week that Trump made an interesting move. After boarding Air Force One, he snuck out in a catering truck, even though all the other journalists boarded, and went onto a separate plane to avoid a reported assassination threat. The Washington Post then reported that the threat intelligence was Israeli-derived, not U.S. generated, and that the CIA did not view the intelligence as compelling, even though the U.S. intelligence acted on the threat. Here's a video of what transpired. This is provided by the Washington Post, so we're just going to watch this video. So here it is. There he is boarding Air Force One, and then but there's the airport catering truck, which pulls away, and the media boards train. That's 5 minutes after Trump boards Air Force One. That's the staircase. Airport catering truck at rear of C-32A. So what is your response to this maneuver, and also the way the intelligence was communicated and acted on?
When I first heard this, I said to myself that it must have been Israeli intelligence. There's first of all, this is not something that Iran would do for a couple of reasons. One is that Iran is not going to put money into assassinating Trump. Iran thinks that all those people who are involved in the murder of Iranians and they have to be put on trial, and if people seek them out or I don't know, go after them, Iran won't condemn them, but Iran won't have anything to do with this. In other words, they're not going to put money, resources into any such thing. Iran is not the United States or the Israelis. They do that sort of thing. But the very, it's very bizarre that Trump not only started this war based on Israeli intelligence, fake intelligence, but also he humiliated himself in this case, again based on Israeli intelligence. And I think any normal person would be outraged that they would be humiliated in this way. But it's odd that the White House would act, or the Secret Service would, and I assume it's the Secret Service, they would act on Israeli intelligence and not on American intelligence. Right. So that's another bizarre thing. It just shows how much control Israel has over the United States. Another thing is that the worst thing about all of this, first of all, he's cowardly, but the worst thing is that he accepted to leave the plane and leave everyone else on the plane.
Yes.
Right. We had a similar situation. I think you and I discussed this. When we went to Pakistan, the Washington Post, which is very close to the CIA, put out an opinion piece saying that the Iranian negotiators should be assassinated. And so when we were there and the talks collapsed, the belief was that they were going to hit or shoot down our plane. And it was widely believed that there would be a good chance for this. But and people could have, we knew that this danger existed. It wasn't hidden from us, like on Air Force One. Everyone got on the plane, including the journalists and men and women with young women journalists on the plane, and the Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Ghalibaf, he was on the plane. In fact, on the way back to Iran, he came to the back of the plane, shook everyone's hand, and spoke a few words with everyone, and so on. So we all came back, but the plane landed. It didn't come to Tehran. It landed near the border in the city of Mashhad, and they took they suddenly landed, and then we came back to Tehran I came by train, some came by automobile or bus, I don't know, but a number of us came together by train. But the point is that they didn't put us on the plane and then hide the Speaker of Parliament or the head of the delegation and then use us as decoys. We were all on the same flight. We were all together, and we all knew the dangers. And some people could have stayed behind. They could have said, well, I don't want to get on this plane. I want to stick around for a couple of days and then go back to Iran. But everyone came back. But the point is that we were all together. I mean, if Trump didn't want to fly, he could have just said, okay, I'm not taking this flight for security reasons, but these people shouldn't get on this plane either.
Right.
Why should they be used as decoys? Why should all those journalists who had no idea what was happening, their lives be put in danger like that? They could have just changed the schedule and also the whole story is bizarre because this was a NATO conference. Like Turkey, what is it? Like a rundown country with a broken military and a non-existent intelligence. It's the whole of NATO was present there. I'm sure the security in Turkey was like unprecedented with all those leaders, European and Western leaders. So like they weren't taking care of the airport. They weren't taking care of the land around the airport. It's just, I think even a person like a layman like me would understand that that's just not possible. This is not an ordinary trip to Turkey. This is like a trip where the Turkish police and intelligence and military were probably preparing themselves for months to get to have this conference take place without any threat.
Right, of course, yeah. I mean, also, what does it say that they acted on this, even though the CIA didn't believe it was plausible?
Yeah, it just, as I was saying earlier, it just shows how much control they have. Again, if it was me and I was humiliated in this way, the cowardice aside, everything else aside, I would be very angry. But Trump doesn't seem to get angry with they've destroyed his presidency through this war. They've humiliated him. I do not understand why Trump behaves like this.
Right. Well, I thought it'd be cool to watch a little contrasting video to this cowardice that we see from Trump. This is a video of Fidel Castro, and here's my Cuba cup, which I got in Cuba. This is a video of Fidel Castro during a trip to New York in 1979. Let's take a look and let's listen to what he had to say. You always wear that vest? What vest?
Everybody says you always have a bulletproof vest. No. I will land in New York like this.
Tengo un
chaleco moral.
I have a moral one. A moral
vest. It's strong. That one has protected me always.
So yeah, if only Trump could show a modicum. I mean, take a teeny bit of that bravery that we saw from Fidel Castro.
There's one of the similarities between Iran and Cuba is that both of them have a very effective national healthcare network, which includes all the far-off villages and towns and all the different neighborhoods in the cities, and it is a very effective program. The Iranian program is pretty much well known across the world that people use a search engine to study it, but Cuba began this earlier, so that's one similarity that I think is striking. My father actually met Fidel in Cuba, and he gave my father this, one of those hats. I don't know what they're called, which was very nice. I had it for a few years, and then it began to crumble. And when I visited Cuba, and I visited um, when I went to Havana. I couldn't find. I saw different types, but I couldn't find that particular type of hat because I liked that a lot.
Oh,
He also gave him a box of cigars,
wow.
and but since no one in our home smokes, my father just put it away somewhere. And then years later, I went and took it out, and it crumbled in my hand,
Right.
the cigars. And then years after that, I found out that these cigars were actually pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But since we didn't take care of them, they
Oh
crumbled.
no.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
You got to put
but
them in some
anyway,
kind of glass case.
yeah, I don't know. But in any case, he did give these two gifts to my father.
Yeah. Dr. Marandi, you have to go in like 3 minutes. Is that right? What's the most we can keep you?
In about 7 minutes. That's
Okay,
5,
great.
6.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, I will cut this in later, but you had an amazing exchange on Piers Morgan that went viral. And it even, I don't know if this is why you landed on Midas Touch, but you were on Midas Touch, which is a fairly like liberal, not leftist, but liberal channel. Tell us about what went into your response to Dershowitz and why you think it resonated with so many people.
I didn't want to do the interview because I told Piers Morgan's people a long time ago that I will only do one-on-one, and it's because his show is often ridiculous. And like when they bring on serious people, they put them alongside totally unserious and crazy people, and it's just a waste of time. Some of our mutual friends, they've been on his show, and then these I don't want to use a bad word, but these completely unserious people would yell at them and scream at them and just make up numbers, and there's no real debate. So when they asked me to do this, I didn't want to do it, but since I knew of him, and I consider himself to be deeply sinister, I said, okay, I'll even though if Piers Morgan is on his side for the most usually. I'll do it anyway. And but to his credit, Piers Morgan didn't do much this time around. He didn't interfere too much. He attacked me once, but besides that, it was all fine. But yeah, so I one of the I'm personally I'm not very happy with it because I do not like getting passionate.
Yeah, you're very calm usually.
But we've all been experienced going through this for 3 years. You get up in the morning, you see dead bodies. You go to bed at night, you see burning bodies. And just today or yesterday, they just happen so often you don't know what happened. But they bombed like yesterday, like the head of the police, and he burned alive in his car. They just and then kids every day are dying, and those who die of illness and disease and other things are like far greater than the numbers who were killed through directly. So the deaths are clearly far beyond what the official numbers. But I got a bit passionate, which I noticed I was big passionate. I said, I wanted to discontinue being passionate, but then as we go forward, people like him just make me deeply, you're reminded of this ongoing genocide, and it's, in a sense, it's not like Saddam Hussein or Hitler or anything like that, because it's happening. We're seeing it. It's not like even Saddam Hussein, it happened in our time, but we weren't watching him killing people online and watching the videos and every day, or even Yemen, the Saudis and the Emiratis, with the support of the region and the West, they carried out genocide for years, but we didn't see much of it because it wasn't online like Gaza was. And Hitler, it's just like, we read about it like 70, you see these like black and white pictures, and probably even in Germany, and I may be wrong, but let's say some person lives to the west of Germany and they may not even have heard of death camps or anything, or they may have just heard rumors, and then people say, no, it's nonsense. But this is like, it's like right in front of us.
Right.
And it's like that guy who you mentioned at the beginning who said, yeah, these girls, when they grow up, they'll be like this. Like they justified in the most despicable ways what is happening.
Right.
And that, I think, that kept me a bit, that made me more, I don't know, emotional or passionate during the exchange. I hope it wasn't too bad, but anyway.
No, people loved it. I mean, I think it's, it makes your blood boil, right? Hearing these people, especially he's a lawyer, right? He's like, I mean, he's been disgraced, but he still has some respectability in some circles, even though, as you pointed out many times, he was not just did he represent Epstein, which is one thing, and that's a choice, but he was friends with him and would go on the Lolita Express with him. But I thought it was also funny that he said to you that he was going to sue you for what you were saying. He did that to me. I said at the end of my appearance that he was on, where I called him a bully, I said to him that more women have credibly, and they cut this, but I said at the very end, more women have credibly accused Alan Dershowitz of sexual assault than have credibly accused Hamas. And he said, oh, I'm going to sue you. And then they cut that out. But you did a great job, I think. And I understand it is hard. You are kind of, I think, like, you know, it stands out how calm, cool, collected you are. But I think that people really related to your ire there, your kind of righteous indignation, because you do have this person who is just defending, pretending to have the law on his side, who's just defending genocide. So anyway, I thought you did an excellent job.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope, I mean, your show is itself an excellent show that exposes people like him. And I did watch your show with him.
Yeah.
I did. When you said this, I didn't remember that piece. So I didn't know he cut things out. I didn't know Piers Morgan.
Yeah, it was at the very end. Yeah, and I think it's because, you know, one of the women who accused him of that then recanted it. Although, I mean, who knows what kind of pressure she was under. This is the woman who wound up committing suicide.
Yes, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that Piers Morgan didn't want that on there. But it's so funny. He constantly throws around that he's going to sue people, and he doesn't ever follow up on it. So anyway. Well, Dr. Marandi, thank you so much for everything that you do. And we would love to talk to you again soon.
It's a great honor. Thank you very much for having me. And apparently your dog was listening to me, because he's gone quiet this whole time.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, he is. He's paying attention.
Before the show, he was, barking, and as soon as I started, he just went quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a big fan.
So at least one person is listening to me.
Yeah, one creature. One creature. Many more people, obviously, but yes, Bucky is included in your fan club.
Well, anyway, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. See you soon, and stay safe.
You too. Bye for now.
Okay, that was great. It's always amazing to hear from Dr. Marandi, such an important voice and so tireless in his media appearances. So we are going to keep the show going. If you haven't already liked it, please do like it. We're going to bring on to the show. I don't know if he's been on the show before. I mean, I've interviewed him on the streets at protests, but Taher Dahleh, who is an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement and a labor leader in the Communications Workers of America. And he's going to talk to us about a very important week of action that is happening right now around the murdered journalist Anas Al-Sharif. So, as well as other murdered journalists. So welcome, Taher. Hi.
Hi, Katie. How are you? It's
good. Thank you.
Good to see you as always.
You too. Tell us about this week of action. First of all, tell us who Anas Al-Sharif was, and tell us about how you are putting on this this week of action that PYM and New York War Crimes have put on, as well as the Living Record, which remembers the legacy of Anas Al-Sharif and other murdered journalists.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. I think probably many listeners of this show are familiar with Anas Al-Sharif. For more than 2 years during Israel's genocidal war on Gaza, Anas was a constant presence on people's screens, their TVs and their phones, and was a primary voice and spokesperson for the suffering and pain of the people of Gaza, and also for the resilience and steadfastness of the same people, and so for that he earned the nickname "the Voice of Gaza." and it's very, very well deserved. I think probably a lot of us, when we think about Anas, who was assassinated by Israel on August 10th, 1 year ago, 2025, we've just made 1 year anniversary. He's emblematic of what Gazan journalists and Palestinian journalists more generally represent, which is a commitment to telling the truth, which is a commitment to constant presence amongst their people, a closeness to the most immediate and daily needs of those people, something that runs counter to a good bit of Western and particularly American journalism and what we see in the corporate media. Several iconic moments came from Anas. I know one that sticks out for me is during the first ceasefire that Israel, with the support of the United States, broke in March 2025. He had an iconic moment of taking off his helmet and his press vest and expressing the joy that many people, not only in Gaza, but across Palestine and throughout the world, felt when this brutal genocidal assault was put on a temporary pause. And so for this reason, I think Anas not only has become emblematic of so many different journalists, but has really created a human element to the genocide that Israel, with all of its allies, is perpetrating in Gaza. And we've been commemorating him, but not just him, the more than 260 martyred journalists who have been assassinated as they've produced, very, very important work, without whom we wouldn't know the real realities of what's going on in particularly places like northern Gaza, which for more than 2 years, in fact, have been subject to the absolutely most despicable tactics of torture that the human mind could imagine, medieval style sieges and total destruction of infrastructure and all life-sustaining essential elements.
Right.
So this has been going on this week. People have been mobilizing in cities across the country and the world. There was a huge vigil in Gaza itself in honor of Anas. New Yorkers protested outside of the New York Times building on Monday, August 10th. And tonight, there will be a commemorative event for Anas, 6:30 at the Riverside Church for anybody who's available. All are welcome. That will talk about his life, his contributions, and also a new project by the New York War Crimes called A Living Record, or The Living Record, which is a testimony from the close relatives and friends of Gazan journalists, Palestinian journalists, and what they meant to people on a very human and practical level.
So important. And I want to actually show that video that you just mentioned of Anas removing his bulletproof vest. 1 second, let me just get this, please. Sorry, Brad is not here today, so thank you everyone for your patience. So here he is removing his helmet and flak jacket, not bulletproof vest, I guess flak jacket. Okay, 1 second. Is this showing up? Sorry about this, everyone. I've gotten kind of out of practice. Present. No, hold on 1 second. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Gaza thing. And then. Okay. Here we go. Let me put the sound on. Okay. So that is his removing his, helmet, flak jacket, and expressing real relief and optimism. And it's very painful to watch that, knowing what happened to him, and of course all the people in Gaza, yes, despite this, quote unquote ceasefire.
Right.
Yeah. I want to also show his last will and testament. This is part of it, and here we see him with his children, who are adorable. And here he is. He's holding them. He writes, and this was in his final message prepared in case of his own martyrdom. Anas Al-Sharif asked all of us to continue to raise Gaza's voice. We leave you with his final message. I entrust you with Palestine. I entrust you not to be silenced by chains nor held back by borders. Be bridges toward the liberation of land and people until the sun of dignity and freedom rises over our usurped homeland. Do not forget Gaza, and do not forget me in your righteous prayers for forgiveness and acceptance. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that most people who do the work that he did, have planned, are very aware that this is a very likely end that they will face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you mentioned it, Katie, but many journalists, Anas, another very prominent one, Hussam Shabat, Ismail al-Ghul, voices again like Anas, who were primary conduits to the realities of Gaza, spoke before their assassinations and their murders at the hands of Israel about preparing their last wills and testaments, preparing their families to post those on Twitter in the event of the worst happening, which is a brutal and very, very disturbing process to imagine, particularly somebody like Anas, who was a young man. In fact, all of these guys are really, they're people in the beginning of life. They're not, I think most of them are younger than me, and I'm in my early 30s. It's very, very hard to imagine that. At the same time, I think it also shows the tremendous responsibility that these journalists felt and lived up to, not only in addressing the public and speaking to a broad audience about what's going on and really preventing the crime of our lifetimes and certainly of this century from going into the shadows, but also the immense loyalty and belonging to their people. I mean, when we were watching that clip together of Anas taking off his helmet and press jacket, I was thinking, like, I don't know if I've seen other journalists. I'm sure that it's existed, but I don't know if I've seen other journalists, particularly American or European, that close to what it is that they were covering and that sort of committed to the people whose stories they were telling. It's a journalism that is, I think, objective in the sense that it's not cold. It doesn't attempt to hide the realities of what's going on behind, convenient political agendas, but rather speaks to the most immediate demands of a people facing brutal siege and genocide.
Right. And by the way, just so people watching this know, if you're watching this later, the event that you mentioned is 6:30 p.m. at Riverside Church Friday.
Yes, Friday. This Friday, 6:30 p.m. Riverside Church.
Yeah. Is it going to be streamed or for people who can't attend in person?
Yes, it will be live streamed. You can visit the website entrustedwithpalestine.com. At the top, there's a link to register to watch the live stream. So wherever you are, you can participate in the event. I really encourage people to do so. I mean, not only will it speak to Anas, but it will speak to dozens of other journalists from the perspective of their families and those closest to them. And I think continue to remember them in the way that they should be remembered, which is that this story that they gave their lives to, or this cause that they, paid the ultimate sacrifice in the service of transmitting to the world, which has now really become, I mean, I know you and I have spoken about this a lot, Katie, in the city we live in New York, right, where prior to October 7th and prior to Israel's genocide, people didn't have a good sense of the realities of Gaza. That's completely flipped. I think these journalists and the blood that they've shed in the service of that is a huge, huge part of why. And the trust that Anas gave us, and trust, he says in his last will and testament, as you read, I entrust you with Palestine. We need to take that very seriously and very literally, to continue to share, to continue to participate in protests and community events, to attend tonight's event, and to measure ourselves to some degree relative to the sacrifices that all of these guys gave, and to sort of take Anas, Hussam Shabbat, others who were assassinated alongside Anas, like Mohammad Al-Sharif, as examples and role models and what it means to sort of continue to fight against genocide and to fight for justice.
Right. And I think it's also really important to point out that these are not, not that it would be okay, because this is a genocide, so everything that happens as a result of it is illegal and immoral and unjust. But this isn't like just journalists being killed in the line of fire, like in times of war, right? These are people who, have been targeted often. Israel knows where everybody lives. Also, there's that case of that Al Jazeera cameraman whose name escapes me, apologies, who was shot and killed. Like he could have easily been saved, but Israel blocked the ambulance from reaching him. So he bled out to death over the course of a few hours. Right. So just absolute intentional murder. And we see this, and makes sense, right, for Israel, because they want to kill the storytellers. They want to kill the medical workers so that people aren't treated. I'm just kind of amazed by the bravery of these people who keep doing what they're doing. Also, Dr. Abu Safia, who is someone who had dual citizenship. Right. His son was killed and he stayed there, and now he's being tortured in an Israeli prison as we speak. And the lack of solidarity is so disgusting. The lack of solidarity from medical workers around the world, the lack of there is some, I don't want to ignore, but the fact that it's so unique, like the default should be the solidarity, like the fact that we know the names of the people, and they should obviously be commended. But same thing with journalists. When you compare the way that Palestinian journalists are treated by Western journalists to the way that Ukrainian journalists or any journalist covering, Russia, Ukraine are treated. The hypocrisy is just so stark.
Yeah, and speaking first about the threats, I mean, Anas himself spoke very openly about how from the beginning of the genocide, he continuously received threats from the Israeli government that you're going to be assassinated, that you're a target, that you need to stop or else we'll kill you. Total fabrications about affiliations with political organizations, basically an attempt to declare telling the truth about what's happening in Gaza. And the reality that is plain to people to see, Israel and the United States backs it, attempts to argue that this is somehow a form of terrorism. Right. And I think that shows the cost of what it means to cover up something that is so plain. Any person, if they see Anas's camera roll, if they see a post from Hussam Shabat, if they watch the numerous journalists from Gaza that are still working, on a daily basis. I've had the pleasure of interacting with some, like a guy named Yusuf Fares, which I encourage all people to look up and follow. His work is very, very critical in this moment. That the cost of silencing these voices, or the cost of distorting what they do bring to the world, is not just propaganda and lies, it's blood. The only way to cover this up is through assassinations, through drone strikes. And as we speak today, I mean, the killings go on. Israel has continued to follow a policy of targeted assassinations. Just yesterday, assassinated the chief of police in Gaza City, while preventing aid from getting in, and not, and this is not unexpected, particularly to people who listen to this show, I'm sure, but not honoring a single one of its commitments that it made in the last October ceasefire deal, continuing to starve the people of Gaza, to prevent people from rebuilding, to force people into a position where they sometimes wish for death, right, rather than to continue going, which is, we've seen the people of Gaza and what they've been able to endure. So if this is a sentiment that's coming out, it speaks to the horrible brutality. These stories are not making it to us in this moment. Right. In large part, it's because the corporate media in the United States and Europe is totally complicit, has no interest in showing the true reality of what people are facing. But it's also because the literal figures who have worked tirelessly through starvation and exhaustion have been killed and removed from being able to do journalism in the most concrete sense. And so the Ukraine example is very apt. The 263 journalists or more who have been assassinated and murdered by Israel are thought of as sort of like boogeymen in the mind of many Western media outlets and people who should be their colleagues, whereas Ukrainians in the line of war coverage and stuff are regarded as massive heroes. I mean, in fact, I think there are no journalists more heroic than the people of Gaza's, and also the broader region. I mean, I think it's worth noting, and I'll close with this point, that what they do in Gaza to hide the conditions, they do across the entire region. You just had Mohammad Marandi on. How many of us are able to hear from Iranian journalists about the destruction that America and Israel has waged on Iranian infrastructure? Right now, the West Bank is forced to endure some of the most brutal settler escalations and violence. I mean, to the point that in Qusra, in the area around Nablus, there are American citizens, right? Palestinians who hold American citizenship being besieged, tortured, harassed by Israeli settlers. The IDF's response to this and the Israeli state's response to this has been to remove those people from their homes and to allow the settlers to take them. This is a story that should be headline news in the United States. And it's not, because the journalists who think about, I need to cover this and do it, are blocked by getting access to, are blocked from access to American media channels, and understand that the price of continuing to do this, even with all of this complicity and collusion, could ultimately be their lives.
Right, exactly. And it's I think what you're saying is so important, and it really, again, the media is complicit in genocide. Like, the Western media is complicit in this genocide by ignoring it, by not demanding for the respect of international humanitarian law. And again, like Putin, this is not a yay Putin cheer leading fest, but like Russia does not intentionally target journalists, right? So why aren't people up in arms about it when I mean, journalists being killed should be condemned, but it's just so rich that and ironic that when it's actually done intentionally, it doesn't get any attention. That's something that actually you could conceivably, I mean, if Israel were at all stoppable or had responded to anything, but of course it could if the United States government did, right? But that's something that's not an inevitable part of war, targeting journalists. And again, this isn't a war. Like, that's another difference between Russia and Ukraine. This is not a war. This is a genocide.
I mean, I think the treatment of journalists shows, in fact, this is, at this point, I think after 2 years, has become really a common sense position. But if you need another reason to understand it this way, that this is a genocide and not a war, I don't think there's any other country in modern history, even the United States of America, that has sent drones to kill journalists in the line of coverage. Right. Like you mentioned, this Al Jazeera cameraman. I'm also unfortunately his name.
It's Samer Abu Daqqa was his Daqqa was his name. Yeah.
Early on in the war, was shot by a drone and allowed to stay in the street. This guy has young sons. We've seen them on Instagram. You know what I mean? We've connected with them as people. Right. We need to translate that connection, that feeling of sort of understanding and emotional bond into action, because Israel continues to show that it will not stop unless the people of the world continue to take on the trust that Anas and others left us with.
Right. Well, Taher, thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you soon. And please come back, and thank you for everything that Palestinian Youth Movement does.
Thank you, Katie, and see everybody tonight, hopefully 6:30 at the Riverside Church.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I mean, bye, Taher, not everyone.
Bye, Katie.
Bye, Taher, and hope to see everyone there. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was amazing. What a jam-packed great show we have. We have 2 guests coming on, but one of them is already here. And to save, because we respect his time so much, we're just going to bring him on to the show. And I'm speaking of Alec Karakatsanis. We'll be joined shortly by Nathan Robinson. And Alec Karakatsanis is a civil rights lawyer and author of books including Unusual Cruelty. And his most recent book is Propaganda, and he's the founder and executive director of Civil Rights Corps. So welcome to the show. Oh, and we have Nathan Robinson here too. So Nathan Robinson is the editor and founder of Current Affairs. So welcome, Alec, and welcome, Nathan. Hi. Thank you so much for joining. Hi.
Great to see you both.
Yes, you too. So wanted to have you guys on, and I thought it'd be really cool to have you guys on in conversation. But I want to start off by watching a clip that has gone viral over the last week of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on ABC's This Week, being asked about defunding the police, Franchesca Hong, and what she called woke 1.0. So let me just play this video here. And apologies again because Brad is not here. So it's taking me a little bit longer. And 1 second. Okay. Let me make sure this is not muted. No, it's not. Okay.
It's possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative.
What do you make of those controversial statements? I'm sure you've seen. I mean, she's
and this is AOC being asked about Franchesca Hong. Neither she nor Bernie Sanders endorsed her. She was running for governor in Wisconsin, and she lost very, very, very narrowly. Okay.
It's possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those.
What do you make of those controversial statements? I'm sure you've seen. I mean, she's the Thanksgiving dust up. Mm-hmm. She says she doesn't, still believe that, but, the abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won. Mm-hmm. How do you get around that?
Yeah.
I mean, those are not positions that are supported by.
Right. I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized. Yeah. But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that Franchesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
Right, she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's
and I
Chiose, by the way.
think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it. I mean, did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the overtime window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this, Alec? We're going to start with the discourse around defund and, perhaps going too far. You wrote a post saying, Alec, almost everything you are hearing in mainstream news about the supposed lack of popularity of progressive policies on police and prisons is a lie. Shifting resources from police punishment to social services is one of the most consistently popular policies polled for 40 years. So please tell us about this reality and what you think of AOC's response.
First of all, I think it's really important to just say at the outset of any attempt to have a real conversation about these issues, it's very hard to talk about these issues in sound bites. That's why I have a free newsletter. That's why I wrote the book. So if you want to see my thoughts in a more, evolved and rigorous way, you can read my propaganda newsletter where I have all kinds of links to studies and data and analysis, and I can link to the great work other people are doing. So, but I'll try to make it really concise because it's also important to be able to convey these ideas really clearly and really simply. And
I was looking over here, not out of boredom, but I was trying to find the copy of propaganda that I have, but it's a great book. Okay.
It's been called by my grandmother the greatest book ever written by one of her grandchildren. So,
wow. That's like the best praise. Put that on the top of your website. It should be your Twitter banner photo.
Yeah. Now it is the only book ever written by one of her grandchildren, but that's not something
you don't have to tell us that. Yeah.
That's true. I got to work on my pitch.
Exactly.
So I think that there's a lot of really nefarious things going on, but both behind what AOC is saying and what a lot of mainstream punditry is saying. So it's important at first, I think, to start with two very clear facts. Number one, the policies underlying what has been called the defund the police movement, mainly to transfer resources from the police and prison bureaucracies and the for-profit industries that are parasitic on them to social services like early childhood education, healthcare, housing, etc., neighborhood like anti-isolation programs that get people in community with each other, right? So art, music, theater, other programs like that. Like the defund movement was about transferring resources from what we call like systems of punishment and repression to systems of care and community. Okay, that general policy has been polled by Gallup, not exactly like a leftist, polling operation. It's been polled by Gallup since 1989. So we have almost 40 years of public polling on this exact question, okay? And over the course of 40 years, it is one of the most popular, consistently polled policies in American politics. It's got like a 2-to-1, 2/3, 1/3 supermajority support. I'm talking about Republicans, independents, Democrats, young people, old people, rich people, poor people, every racial demographic, okay? So you have to understand that the policies underlying what the defund campaigns were calling for, which was shifting some resources from the policing bureaucracy and prison bureaucracies to systems of care, is enormously popular. So any politician that's not striving for those policies is actually operating contrary to the interests and the expressed interests of the vast majority of the population.
And the preferences, right? The preferences.
What's that?
Too. And the preferences.
and the preferences.
Right.
That's fact number one. Fact number two is that the punishment bureaucracy, so this whole constellation of multi-billion-dollar industries and all the people that work in them, the police unions, the prison guard unions, the private prisons, et cetera, the punishment bureaucracy is incredibly effective at targeting the poorest people in our society and people who are advocating for social change. That's why the punishment bureaucracy has targeted every major progressive social movement in modern American history. The women's suffrage movement, the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement. At the height of the civil rights movement, in Chicago alone, there were 500 undercover cops focused on disrupting the civil rights movement, okay? The indigenous peoples movement, the LGBTQ movement, the modern anti-genocide movement, the environmental and climate change movement, they've all been targeted and crushed by this massive bureaucracy, let alone the immigrant rights movement, what we're seeing now with ICE. So when Democratic Party politicians like AOC don't speak clearly about what these bureaucracies, both the punishment and surveillance components of them, who they target and what their role is in actually preventing the kinds of social change that she says she wants. So who do you think's standing in the way of disability rights, universal health care, the tenant movement, who's standing in the way of challenging ICE? Well, it is the punishment bureaucracy. That's their role in an unequal society. So my biggest problem with what AOC is saying is she's in a sense lying to people about what's popular, and she's distracting people by a very superficial focus on a slogan that most people don't actually associate with their own policy preferences, and she's using that to just wave away the entire very popular set of policies at a time when the Trump administration is supercharging and expanding things like DHS and ICE in cooperation with local police. So it's extremely dangerous because the end result of all of this kind of boosting and reifying of the right wing's framing that immigrants are dangerous and we have to enforce immigration laws and build up a militarized border, and poor people and unhoused people and people of color and are dangerous, and they need to be targeted on the streets, and we need to be building more prisons for them. When you embrace the underlying mythologies there that the police and prisons are going to make us safer, when we already have a prison and police system that's 5 times the size of other countries and 5 times our own historical average, and we're already caging Black people at 6 times the rate of South Africa at the height of apartheid. When you embrace all that as AOC, you actually undermine the progressive movement.
Right. Well, Nathan, I'm going to bring you back on. Do you have anything you want to add to that? If not, we can shift. We can shift to the aspect of the Franchesca Hong question. Yeah.
The thing I would add to it is 2019.
Can you flip your camera the other way? Sorry. Let's see. Hopefully that'll work. And then if not,
better? No, that didn't flip.
No, it's okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
No, the thing I would add is to go back to 2019, 2020. I mean, what frustrates me about what she and others who have this narrative of woke one are doing in sort of throwing under the bus those who were talking about police and prisons in 2020 is that the 2020 uprising, right, which I guess is being memory hold here, in response to the murder of George Floyd, one of the largest uprisings in, American history, people all around the country coming out in outrage at the 1,000 people that American police kill every year. That system hasn't changed. As Alec pointed out, all of the things that people were upset about then are still with us and are still worsening under the Trump administration. And I think what we as leftists have to do is say, I think you can critique the slogan defund the police. I have a critique of it, which is that you should have a slogan, you should devise your slogan so that it tells as much about what you're going to do instead as about what you're not going to do. And the problem with defund is that it can give people the idea that all you're doing is just making it so that no one comes if you call 911. So you can critique it as a framing, but as Alex said, what you have to do, our job as leftists to do is go, okay, let's talk about the underlying policies that are being advocated. Let's talk about the underlying critique. And it really, really frustrates me when people look back at what was an incredibly important moment where finally we were seeing some movement on policing in prison, some real conversations about this, and go, oh no, that was crazy woke one. We don't do that anymore. Now we love the cops. We all agree that the police keep us safe. I mean, I think Alec and I probably share the same reaction of just like tearing our hair out when we see this stuff.
Yeah, and I also thought it was really telling that when AOC talked about defund, she brought up shutdown, she brought up the Overton window, she brought up shutdowns, COVID, but she didn't bring up the George Floyd uprising. That is, I mean, that, how could you ignore that part? She makes it seem like we were all locked in our homes, things were shut down, so we got a little crazy and opened the Overton window, and it's good that we did that, but why do you think she, like, she obviously intentionally left out the George Floyd aspect? What are your thoughts on that, Alec or Nathan?
I don't know that she intentionally left it out or not. It's certainly a glaring omission. And I think people like AOC are so ensconced in the pundit brain and political consultant brain. You should have to understand, there's very limited people who have access to someone like AOC at this point, right? And I happen to know some of the people that talk to Democrats a lot, and these people are completely lost by and large. The consultant class has no sense of not only like the moral and the moral importance and sort of strategic importance of telling people the truth and treating people like adults. Like that's just not like sort of what the political consulting class that's advising these people is it's not how their approach to politics is. And so I have no idea like who's telling her what, but I know some of these people, and the things they're telling all the Democrats now are really, really, really terrible pieces of advice. And so she's probably been advised to like stick to a very narrow framing, which was that the pandemic made everybody a little bit insane, and like let's just like chalk that up to like I think, as I said before, it's a losing strategy. Yeah. But I can't speak for why she did it, but I will say I'm going to try to do everything in my power to intervene in this conversation on the left, because right now, make no mistake, there is a war within what I'll call the sort of overt anti-fascist coalition between the neoliberal establishment and their kind of representatives. So people like Ezra Klein, people like major Democratic Party politicians, sort of the Chris Murphys of the world, people like that, and then an increasingly large number of pundits, including in Jacobin and MSNBC and today the American Prospect, where they're kind of coming out in favor of the neoliberal establishment position, which is that socialists and leftists don't need to care about police repression and prisons and stuff like that. There's a battle within this coalition between people who care about repression and who understand that the pernicious role that repression plays in progressive leftist social movements, and people that want to just kind of like pretend like we can maybe win an election against the fascists, but continue on much the same neoliberal path. And I think those people are walking us off the cliff, which is why it's so important for me to, within that coalition, try to help win this battle and help people like AOC reframe how they're thinking and talking about this stuff. Because like it or not, AOC is a very important communicator right now for people on the left.
Yeah. And I just want to show this because you tweeted out about this. This is one of, I think, the examples of the media framing on the quote unquote left. This is the American Prospect. Let's see. So this is by Harold Meyerson. Hong, as in Franchesca Hong. Hong campaign post-mortem. It wasn't the socialism, it was the woke. Today on tap, the right to tax actually don't focus on socialism's defining economics, which may actually be true. I mean, they certainly did focus on the Thanksgiving statements. But what is your response to this framing, Alec? And then we'll go to you, Nathan.
Well, he later says in the article that sort of anti-repression work, basically. So talking about the way that in an unequal society, the police and the federal agencies, ICE, DHS, talking about how those agencies actually further repression and crush social movements and further entrench inequality by enabling the government to control and manage inequality rather than solve it. He says talking about all that is not important for socialists. It's not a core part of the socialist message, which is absurd, right? There is no path to a genuinely more equal and egalitarian society without talking about government repression. And also, even if you were somehow able to do that, it wouldn't be a future worth living in. So I think everyone who's read any Orwell, like my friend Nathan here, will be able to tell you that this is a core part of sort of a genuine socialist politics.
Right. Yeah. I want to just contrast what you just said with the piece, going back to the American Prospect piece, because you pointed out something important. I believe this was in your tweet, or I found it on my own, but I think it was in your tweet. So I want to give you credit for this. 1 second. Okay. So he writes, the irony is that it's the not strictly speaking socialist parts of some socialist agendas that impede their success. Bernie, Zoran, and AOC understand that. It would behoove their fellow socialists to understand that as well. So what's your response to this, Nathan?
Well, I mean, there's the part that Alex said, which is that the fight against state authoritarianism is a core part of socialism. I mean, I think that we as leftists need to have confidence in our own ideas and our own positions, and it's exasperating to me when we look back and go like, "Oh, that was crazy." The fact is that we have an argument on this. Alex has been explaining here that the move from a politics of punishment to a politics of care is an effort to reduce crime. This is what we need. It's a difficult thing to explain. It's an important thing to explain, right? If you care about violence, then you don't want to be responding to it after the fact by throwing people in prison. You want to be preventing it before the fact. This is the basic anti-policing argument. It's an argument about making people safer. It's an argument that can be made. It can be made in good faith and can be made persuasively. And the job of leftists is to make that argument and not to go like, "Oh, these people who talk about the police, wow, they've really gone off the deep end."
Right. I also think it's strategically a mistake because, I mean, obviously the right is going to go after AOC no matter what, but it's so easy to then frame her as a flip-flopper.
Well, and you go, well, she admits the left is crazy. So,
right,
you heard it from them. They're all loopy. Right. They all take positions that nobody wants.
Right, yeah.
The other thing is that if you are led to believe that the only way to keep our society safer is through police and prisons and immigration enforcement, then you're not going to vote for AOC. You're going to vote for the people that are consistent and much more full-throated in their advocacy for those things. So she's actually helping her opponents by fortifying the underlying myths and fear that they rely on.
Right. Nate, for Current Affairs, a couple of days ago, you wrote an article, "Without solidarity, the left will fail," and you critique AOC and Bernie Sanders for failing to endorse Franchesca Hong. So why was this a mistake?
Well, so let's first establish that it seems like if Bernie and AOC had backed Franchesca Hong, she likely would have won. The margin was incredibly narrow, and they made in the last weeks of this campaign this very pointed decision to totally disavow her, and to give complete bullshit responses when asked why. Like Bernie said, "Well, I don't really get involved in governors' races." Well, he endorsed Troy Jackson in Maine, so the question is, why not this one? And he didn't really explain. And AOC said, "Oh, well, that's a local race." I mean, she'd just been out to Michigan to support Abdul Al-Sayed. Like Elizabeth Warren said, who'd been out for Abdul Al-Sayed, said, "Oh, I don't know her." So it seems like this failure to coalesce the left and say, "Look, we have a real chance to get a candidate, to get a Democratic Socialist candidate on the ballot in November." It seems like that tanked her. And the argument that is being made is essentially, I haven't seen many people dispute the point that they probably could have pushed her over the top. The argument that I've seen is actually they should have tanked her because she was quote unquote unelectable.
In the general.
And I think that reflects a lack of confidence in left ideas. Like if you think that the data center guy, Crowley, is more electable, you're kind of accepting that your own politics aren't compelling to people, which I don't think. I think a Democratic socialist candidate is a good candidate. I thought Franchesca Hong was really impressive. She had kind of AOC's background as a bartender. She was a single mom. She's actually, when people aren't taking her out of context and distorting her, she was actually a really compelling speaker. She organized a great campaign that got 300,000 votes in a swing state. And my point in that article was, okay, if you think she's going to struggle in a general election, here's what you can do. You can help her. If you think that she needs help on her messaging, that she's bad on cable news, well, then go fly out to Wisconsin, sit her down and teach her everything that you, Bernie Sanders and AOC, have learned in your years and years of communicating as leftists. Don't just go like, I don't know who she is. I mean, we have a chance here to do something totally extraordinary, and the fact that they didn't do it means all the headlines the next day were Franchesca Hong's loss shows the limits of the left.
Right, which is so ridiculous because why doesn't Haley Stevens' loss show the limits of the centrists? It's such an obviously ideological argument that presents itself as objective. I want to show, this is the person who won the primary, David Crowley. And so on Kirsten Welker said, can you name one issue where you disagree most with Franchesca Hong? And let's just take a look at, and this is tweeted out by Tom Tiffany, which is interesting because he's the opponent in the general. And his point is that, so not abolishing the police or prisons. He's trying to criticize Crowley for basically not distinguishing between Hong on a woke level. But let's watch this video because obviously on the left, we have a very different critique of Crowley's answer here.
Biggest issues.
Okay, is that visible yet? Okay, yes, it is. All right.
Can you name one issue where you disagree most with her? One of the biggest issues?
Well, one of the biggest issues that we did have a disagreement on was related to the data centers. She wants to see a moratorium.
Can you?
Okay, so now we have the right using that as evidence that he's woke. But what is your guys' response to this?
I mean, the whole point of apparently sabotaging Hong's campaign was so that you would get someone who didn't have the baggage, and then he's given the opportunity to do the thing that you want him to do, which is to say, well, the difference between me is that I'm not woke one, and instead he takes up the most unpopular position, right? The public is outraged about data centers. It's a really, really popular thing to run on trying to curb the influence of the AI companies. That's why Franchesca Hong put it at the center of her campaign. That's why Abdul is putting it at the center of his campaign. Right. And Crowley now allows the right-wing candidate to run to the left on the issue that should be one of the crucial distinguishing issues between the Democrat and the Republican. I mean, this is what you get when you disavow your left-wing candidate.
Right. Hey, Alec, I know you have to run, but any thoughts on this or final thoughts before you hop?
I think it just behooves all of us in these conversations to, and this is something that I've learned over the course of the last 20 years working in jails and prisons and in some of the most marginalized and targeted communities in our society, is instead of getting distracted by each little twist and turn of the daily news and each little trend and what's popular on social media, we need to center our values, our core values, with the most vulnerable and marginalized people in our world, and examine how the policies that we have in our society are affecting them in their lives and all of us, right? And then relentlessly tell the truth about what we see. One of the biggest piece of advice I give to all of these politicians whenever they ask me for my advice, which is frankly not that often, but sometimes, is the same advice I give to all of the organizers that I work with successfully all across the country, which is tell people the truth and explain the truth as you see it with conviction. Don't do what AOC does here and say these things that I passionately believed in a few years ago. I was totally wrong. Right. And it turns out that actually prisons are great and ICE is awesome, right? So explain, and people want to be treated like adults. People are tired of the political class treating them like they have to only tell them a very partial and misleading story, or lying to them about why they're doing what they're doing. Like people want the truth, and people can handle that truth. And there are really compelling ways of telling these stories. And there's also really compelling ways of saying, you know what, maybe my views go a little further than yours. That's okay. Maybe you'll get there one day. Maybe I'll moderate my views someday. But look, we can agree on like 90% of this stuff. And just explaining it to people like that. And that is the way that I've seen all over the country, in conservative areas, in rural areas, in progressive areas, in urban areas, winning on these exact policies that underlie the defund campaign. Just to take one example.
Right. Yeah. Nathan, what about you? And Alec, I think you have probably to defend.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Like a client or something. So I would feel
great to see you both.
Holding you back.
Great
Okay. Thank you too. Bye. Okay, Nathan, what say ye?
Yeah, I mean, if we critique AOC, I think we should have a constructive critique where we say what we wish AOC would say in those kinds of situations. And I think the answer is, I'd like to see her say, well, hang on a minute. You know, what was 2020 about? Let's remind people to remember what you saw on the tape at George Floyd's death. You know, remember how you felt, because the outrage was nationwide, and it was not just hardcore woke people. It was everyone having a conversation about the fact that American police are too violent, and so let's have her say, okay, look. We can critique the slogans and the way that we frame the issue, but what we need to have a conversation about, and what Franchesca Hong has always cared about, defend her, say what she's always cared about is making sure we live in a society where the state, the boot of the state, is not on people's necks. We don't respond to our social problems instinctively and de facto with prisons. We think about these issues that we were talking about in 2020 that range from the fact that when people get out of prison, there are all sorts of restrictions on them that make it harder to integrate back into ordinary life, or the exorbitant cost of prison phone calls, the difficulty of maintaining family ties and what that does intergenerationally, and how that sets children on a path to being in prison themselves. We were talking about the school to prison pipeline. Where have all these conversations gone? Let's have them again, and let's explain what the policies are and why they're actually going to deliver meaningful public safety, why they're actually going to reduce crime by making sure that you're keeping people from a path where they end up in prison. And so as I've been saying, it's really easy to make that argument. So it's like, let's just see our left politicians defend progressive policies on crime and policing.
Right. Yeah. I do agree with you, by the way, about the defund framing. My mom and Adolph Reed, and I think we can talk. I mean, another thing is like, why don't we talk about that? I don't think we have to be accused of being sellouts or afraid of our own shadows if we revisit, or we consider, we look at the actual title. You know, my mom and Adolph Reed are both like, that's they both think like I think my mom said this. I told this to Adolph Reed on a show, and he's like, yes. My mom's like, I think an agent, she's not against the program of defunding, she just thinks it's a bad name. She's like, I think an agent came up with that. Which, you know, that's
yeah.
She grew up as a, you know, diaper baby. So
yeah, right. That could have happened. Exactly.
Yeah. Her brother, they could hear the phone tap because of her brother, who was a UAW organizer and a member of the Du Bois Club, which is the youth wing of the Communist Party.
And actually, we know that's starting up again, right? There was just a big expose on the Trump administration in response to the anti-ICE protests to infiltrating all the left-wing groups. So we're going to see we're probably going to see a lot of efforts to try and undermine left-wing groups from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are going to bring on our next guest. Nathan, you're welcome to stay around.
So I got to go, but it's great to see you. It's great to see you, Katie.
Great. Okay, you too. Great job at Current Affairs. Talk soon.
Thanks so much.
All right, bye. We are so excited to bring on our next guest, and to save time, I'm just going to pop him up on stage. Greg Stoker, anti-war veteran, also a congressional candidate, who is running very much against the status quo. And I love his one of his slogans, which is, what is it? It's not America.
It's not America first. It's Americans first. I'm currently running in Congressional District 31. And if you want to learn more about my policies and political philosophy, you can subscribe to our new media startup called rfvmedia.com, where we cover all the stuff we're going to be talking today. So
awesome. Great. So before we move on to military news, I don't know if you watched any of the last conversation. Or
about
if you
5 minutes.
Okay, well, have you been paying attention to the AOC talking about defund and abolish being like crazy woke stuff? If not,
yeah, I mean, it's 0% surprising, that they're taking this like backpedaling approach. I have not been following the woke one was crazy thing. I've been more focused on foreign affairs, but yeah, none of it's surprising that they're actually not endorsing a candidate that is not really going to be compromised by the status quo or business as usual type stuff. Makes it very uncomfortable, makes the rest of the centrist Dems look bad. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, moving on to military news. So there's been reporting that a sailor went overboard, like literally threw himself overboard on the U.S.S. Abraham Lincoln earlier this month amid harsh conditions like crashing morale. Some of these conditions are like water, low supplies, contaminated water. What are your thoughts on this story and what it kind of portends about the military preparedness to this Iran war?
It's absolutely insane. Even in the days of the British Royal Navy in the 19th century, it's pretty much unheard of to spend more than 6 months at sea without a port call. Absolutely unhinged. And even when the British Navy in the 19th century, which is like the worst, most brutal frigging one of them to be in, they still, if they were at sea for like 7 months, 8 months, they would have resupply ships that they were trying to impose a blockade, which we're doing. But we're not sending supply ships either. So basically, just to get a timeline of how insane this was and how if I was a sailor aboard this specific carrier strike group attached to the U.S.S. Abraham Lincoln, I'm not re-enlisting. I'm getting out. So basically, the major headlines are, and the timeline that I kind of prepped right here is this Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, which is a nuclear-powered craft, left San Diego in November 21st, 2024, and has been continuously deployed for over 260 days, stationed primarily in the Arabian Sea to support this stupid operation against Iran. And
Greg, I'm so sorry. There's a buzzer. I have to get something. I'm going to go off screen, but I'm going to continue to listen to you. I'm just going off screen.
I'll just keep going.
Keep going. Yes.
So basically, the carrier logged 208 so far consecutive days at sea without a single port call, as I mentioned before. So basically what's happening now is in order to relieve this ship, which should have been off rotation months and months ago and returned to port back in the continental United States, the Pentagon is now sending the U.S.S. George Washington carrier strike group to West Asia or the Gulf. And it just departed Vietnam 2 days ago, I believe, and it will take several weeks before the formal handoff in the Gulf happens, and then it's going to take several weeks for the carrier strike group to return to the continental United States. So this is like a horrible situation, and you've seen military families, media reports, and lawmakers sounding these alarms over the extreme hardships faced by like 5,000 sailors aboard this ship. But it's not just this ship either. It's the entire strike group. There are attack craft, like Marine expeditionary units with battalions of infantry. You've got destroyers, missile cruisers. Think about the submarines. There's always submarines attached to these carrier strike groups with nuclear capabilities. And we're not hearing about that. We're just hearing about the U.S.S. Abraham Lincoln because not a lot of stuff has happened, right? Since the beginning of the Iran war. We've had supply chain issues, frequent plumbing issues. There was it's hard to keep track of the timeline because so much crap happens in this information environment. But, you had the plumbing issues where we were thinking that sailors were sabotaging the toilet so they'd have to dock in port so they could get off the boat. You had the lack of hot water. You've had moldy showers. And then another big headline about this same aircraft carrier in March was that a major 30-hour laundry room fire also displaced like roughly 600 sailors from their bunks and burned a lot of their beds or sheets. It's just been an absolute mess. And of course, you're not supposed to stay at sea that long because you literally go insane. I was in the Army. I have logged 0 ship time. The longest I've ever been aboard a ship at sea was about 3 weeks when I was on the Global Samud Flotilla. But then, but that's not even that bad because I can go up on deck. If you're stationed in a submarine attached to this group, if you're stationed in, the maintenance room of one of these carriers, you're not going up on deck very much at all. And this is kind of why I think some of these guys got recognized, because there's a deck crew that does the aircraft and the maintenance, and they're the ones up on deck. So when you see someone from like the bowels of the ship walking up on deck, you're like, yo, dude, what are you doing? So apparently some were stopped. We're not getting a lot of good, like reliable information based on like what's happening. There's an absolute media blackout across the fleet. I suspect, I cannot confirm, because what would happen when we were overseas, and this is not changed, when something happened or something embarrassing or someone died or was injured, they'd shut down all external communications. You couldn't call home, couldn't answer outside emails that were outside of the SIPR network. So we're not going to get any good information. But when the U.S. CENTCOM and Pete Hegseth says, we're doing everything we can, this is totally fine, we're at the highest state of readiness. No, you're not. People are literally going insane. And those are just the people who did high profile things like try to throw themselves off the deck. And that's a really agonizing way to die, drowning to death in freezing blue water. It's also psychologically terrifying as well. We're not even thinking about hangings. We're not thinking about razor blades. We're not thinking about other ways you can do. And that's not going to get reported either. Right. And this is not just literally, I cannot stress this enough. When you're in an enclosed environment and you haven't been on land and you hear this drone every waking moment from the nuclear reactor, you're going to start to lose it. Right. So they're not even in a fighting capacity. There has been no plan, even during World War II. There was painstaking, meticulous attention to combat rotations. When we were fighting the Imperial Japanese Navy, people weren't at sea this long. And we're just in a distance conflict with Iran, and this is happening. Insane levels of incompetence. And it just shows there was no plan. Right. There was absolutely no plan. So now we're having to reallocate assets from Vietnam, which is meant to isolate and contain China because of our pipe dream of engaging in a contest over the Strait of Taiwan by 2028 to 2030. That's not happening anymore. So I guess that's a good thing, at least right now. But yeah, it just speaks to absolute insanity. And meanwhile, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is basically just going around the globe or around the country to various military installations, really sweaty, really clamping down on his jaws with a massive camera crew, just doing photo ops.
Yeah, we actually have one of these videos that you shared with me, Greg. Let's see, just to set it up. This is what is this one? Here's a clip of him from the Panamanian jungle, right? Is that the?
Yeah, it's our new jungle warfare.
Right, today we launched the.
Sorry, keep going. Sorry, just said
no. You play from the beginning, then I'll comment. He's got this new signature move where he puts his hair back when he's just really pumped up.
Right, because he's so sweaty or something, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why today we launched the motto of the ACCC, which is we do bad things to bad people, because for too long, bad people did bad things to good people inside the United States of America and across Central and South America. And we're going to empower great Americans and great partners to do really good stuff and be very capable about bringing violence against drug cartels and designated terrorist organizations, because we're dead serious about securing the homeland. We're dead serious about the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which is not just talk. It's not just a policy extension of Teddy Roosevelt. It is a recognition that DTOs, foreign terrorist organizations, will not control our hemisphere with our partners, and we will not allow foreign malign influence to take over, say, key terrain like the Panama Canal.
Okay, cool. I honestly don't think Pete Hegseth is drinking anymore. I think this is completely allegedly, right? I think he's New York City sober. Which is no alcohol, just like ripping fat nose beers. I don't understand
What's
this.
Nose beers? What's nose beers?
I
don't know.
Cocaine.
Oh, it is. Okay, I got it. That's New York City. That's New York City. And California sober is just weed, right?
Yeah, it's just weed.
Okay, yeah.
So take your pick. Obviously, we have no idea if that's true. It's just an ongoing joke in the military community. Every time we see a video of him crop up, because he's just always just full speed ahead, starting about like just yapping in the same way you talk about like starting a business or a cloud kitchen at 4:00 in the morning. Like, I don't know how, and it's absolutely absurd because we do bad things to bad people. It's something people put on morale patches in like 2009 during the global war on terror. It's like nothing has changed. And now we have this massive defeat in Iran. And so now he's doing photo ops in the Panamanian jungle in this new jungle warfare school that they just made to send people to fight in the jungle, because we're doing Latin American interventions. That's what we're prepping for. And we're using the kind of non-existence sometimes. Yeah. Okay. We're using the aegis of counter cartel operations to intervene in governments like Bolivia, Ecuador, pretty much everything that's just not Argentina or Chile or El Salvador. Because, Cuba is not just an ideological threat, it's a material threat because it has a leadership position with all of these. So it's
all of these what? Sorry, you froze for a second.
All of these not completely authoritarian right-wing governments across Latin America. So, yeah.
Here's my Cuba mug, by the way, which we bought in Cuba. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. If I wasn't running for this freaking campaign, I would have gone with the rest of them. But basically, that's kind of what we're looking at. Like I talked about this like however many months ago. It's been in March. Like after this defeat, there's going to be a real ramping up of Southcom activity in Latin America. Because one of the reasons Trump campaigned on during the campaign season, like of course myself and other analysts said, like, yes, there's a lot of talk about him being an anti-war candidate. Even people on the left were like, he's probably going to be less violent and interventionist than the Biden administration. Of course, like that's just not how imperial presidencies work. But even they were prepping for this Don Roe Doctrine 2.0 because it is a way to assert imperial authority in an era where we no longer have this kind of power projection across the globe. And so that's what we were supposed to be focusing on. Then the Iran thing kicked off, and it's just been an absolute mess from the start. So it's a really expansive and embarrassing subject as well. The Trump administration is now putting out propaganda about building new maritime ships and building new ships and reinstating maritime dominance. I think the war on Iran and the fact that China can send like 100,000 drones at a carrier strike group really just should telegraph to military planners that we've entered a new, more democratized era of warfare where the big planes and the big guns and the big ships really aren't cutting it. Like they're having to stay out at sea far, far in blue water so they don't get hit by these drones or these missiles. And even though they have an air defense system called the Aegis Defense System, which is like pretty good, there's not enough ordnance to defend from the amount of drones and hypersonic missiles that they can put on target. So these are irrelevant ships, but now they're going in. Like this started in the war in Ukraine, where the Ukrainians took out a Russian destroyer with a drone. But we're still pretending like this era of warfare, which we've been losing consistently for like 20 something years, going back to Korea and Vietnam, actually, because our military is not actually set up to win conflicts. It's done. It's done. And there's no acceptance of that.
What's it set up to do, if not win conflicts?
I'd say since the post-World War II era, where going into World War II, we were still an imperial power, Philippines, Puerto Rico, other places, Hawaii, but it was just really not an impressive military power. We were like behind Romania in terms of like power projection and stuff like that. It was not until World War II and when we turned the entire massive industrial base, which was like 50% of the world's industrial capacity at the time, strictly to making weapons and war material, did we expand into this massive global arms trader. And once World War II was over, we were supposed to, just like every other military pretty much on the entire planet, to scale down and decommission a lot of different units and a lot of different factories and stuff. But no, it just made too much money. So we just kept that thing going. And, you know, there was still a lot of military functionality during the Korean War, but like Vietnam is really when it started to be like, okay, defense contractors now, through their lobbying, have an inordinate amount of influence in Washington, D.C. Right. So that's kind of what we're here to make money. If we win, sometimes that's cool. Even if we lose, we'll also make money because we'll be able to make like revisionist Hollywood movies like Black Hawk Down, or, you know, whatever, and like still get people to buy in and believe in American military exceptionalism so that we can keep fighting these losing adventurous conflicts and still make money. And this is what we're seeing here in Iran.
Well,
more of the same.
I have to show you a video that I just was sent of Trump responding to the U.S.S. Abraham Lincoln story. It's pretty incredible. I also just threw up your website. Okay, hold on one second. This is amazing. So here is a reporter asking Trump about family members of service members being concerned about conditions on the Lincoln. Okay, so hold on one second. No, that's not it. We're hold on one second. Sorry, Brad is not here today. Okay, here we go. Because he's so irresponsible. No, I'm just kidding. He's very, very responsible. He just had to not be here. I'm making fun of myself, not him. Why do I forget how to do this? Hold on one second.
My producer's on vacation too. It's been a thing.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Okay, wait. That is a thing. Now, where is it? Why don't I see it?
Oh. Okay, well, I guess it's just me then. We're gonna keep I think she probably exited out.
Sorry about that. I did exit out by accident. Oh, this is good now because a lot of the stuff that I had up there is gone, which we wanted to be gone because I was distracted. I couldn't deal with, there was too much stuff on my screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so here is this Trump video that I just mentioned. Here he is being asked about the Liberty. No, is it the Liberty? The Abraham Lincoln, right? Freudian slip because is it the Liberty, of course, is it Israeli thing? Okay.
Okay. What else do I have to say?
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the U.S.S. Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship.
Okay, so again, family members of service members are concerned about the ship. Okay.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Have the deployments gone on too long?
No. Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everybody.
What does that even mean? It's just so detached from reality because, like, even if you wanted to, these people physically cannot stay on the ship any longer.
Right.
Like, you literally lose your mind. It's called cabin fever. It's been a known thing in naval military history since like the BCs, right? This is nothing. Actually, wait, not in the BC, because the BCs, they were using triremes, so they'd dock on shore every night. So this is like since like gunpowder era naval stuff. Like, you cannot stay on the water this long.
So crazy. Okay, so
it's literally freaking crazy, and he dismisses it. But like 200, I'm referencing an article from The Hill from yesterday. Navy leadership has reportedly met with family members of sailors aboard the U.S.S. Lincoln aircraft carrier over worries about the deployment. An in-person meeting, an estimated 200 attendees on Thursday, yesterday, in San Diego, where they're stationed out of, I believe. Family members spoke to Hong Kao, acting Navy Secretary, Vice Admiral Douglas Verissimo, head of the Naval Air Forces, and Vice Admiral Joseph Cahill. 3 vice admirals, these 200 family members showed up and demanded, accountability. But there is no plan. There has been no plan. And not only that, like, a lot of this incompetence is because the sycophantic nature of what the Pentagon is now. Pete Hegseth did a whole purge of generals. And a lot of people in the military community actually were a big champions of purging the amount of generals and admirals that we have in the U.S. military. It's called rank creep, and it's been a growing problem since like Vietnam. There's just too many generals. There's no need for this many generals. But the problem is they use the aegis of that in order to purge everybody who wasn't politically a Trump loyalist and an evangelical. So these aren't like the best of the military planners. They either resigned or they were forced to resign their command. So we're also dealing with a bunch of sycophants as well.
But it's also just so insane to me that he doesn't even pay lip service. Like, he's not even pandering to these people. He's not even saying, yeah, of course we're gonna like, he doesn't mind lying. Like, he could easily say, yeah, we're gonna shorten the deployments. No, they're not nearly long enough. I
think honestly, and there's been a lot of reporting around this. I believe there was leaked audio a few months ago that came out. Like, he literally thought this was going to be 3 to 4 days.
Right.
And then the entire thing was going to collapse. Not only were the evangelical military commanders in the Pentagon who are aligned with Pete Hegseth being like, yeah, we can destroy Iran and usher in Armageddon or whatever they believe. And also they're given, promises by the Israelis as well. And he doesn't know how to handle this because from the imperial perspective, if we don't find a win out of this, which we can't, that's pretty much done for imperial power projection forever. Like, you're going to see a lot of different countries start reviewing status of forces agreements, which are the agreements to have bases in your country. We're going to lose a big footprint. They'll be like, what is the point of having the U.S. military here if they can't even defeat Iran? Also, it's a liability. Look what happened because they had bases in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and Kuwait and Qatar that could not be protected. Right. And then our economy and our tourist industry is actually gutted. So this, I cannot, this is the biggest strategic blunder of the 21st century. I think it might be worse, not in terms of life or cost, than the global war on terror, but this is like the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Well, it's interesting because someone, Brad does always say, don't look at, treat the comment section like the sun, don't look directly at it. But I do want to give you the chance to respond to this statement because I think it's kind of funny. So someone wrote, what massive defeat, you talked about the defeat in Iran, right?
Mm-hmm.
What massive defeat did this punk speak of?
When you engage in a military operation and you have stated strategic and operational objectives and you don't meet any of them, you fail. That is a failed operation. That is a defeat. If you have objectives, you don't accomplish them, you lost.
Right.
The objectives were to dismantle Iran's nuclear capability. Not going to happen. It's actually impossible for that to happen, which is why they shouldn't have made it a stated objective. Because even if you destroy the sites, you're not destroying the knowledge. You'd have to kill every scientist in Iran. And then it was to do a regime change. There was no architecture for a regime change. Install a new government and free the Iranian people.
Right.
And then to dismantle their ballistic missile and nuclear capabilities. And then they also had mission creep, which is where you just take on more missions. Then we had to destroy the Iranian Navy, which we still haven't. Then we had to destroy their drone capacity, which we haven't. So we've also made more objectives for ourselves, which we've also failed to achieve. And now it started with the Strait of Hormuz being open, and now Iran is going to have a massive influence over it forever now. So we started with a strait that's open and now one that's kind of open, but now Iran has all the leverage in that. We basically, in some ways, gave them their own little mini Suez Canal, and we've embarrassed U.S. military imperial power projection forever. And it just really goes to show that our 11 carrier strike groups are not as militarily viable or impressive as we thought they were. So I don't know how you spin that into a victory,
right?
Unless you like high gas prices, then you're winning. You're freaking winning. And supply chain disruptions, absolutely winning. You like not having nitrogen for fertilizer for the autumn season, planting season. You're also winning. It's just the orders of magnitude in ways you can describe how disastrous this could be, not just from the military perspective, it's just, I don't know. You could do a whole college course on it.
Right.
It's insane.
Now, do you think there's an opportunity for defection here or some kind of military, I don't know, mutiny or whatever? I'm sure I'm being way too optimistic or delusionally optimistic, but
No, I know we both have a mutual acquaintance, Mike Preisner, who's head of the Center for Conscience and War. He was just on my live stream last night. We were talking about the rise in conscientious objectors. He had also spoken apparently to one of the psychiatrists aboard one of these vessels in the strike group, or someone who was part of that. It's not good. So basically, I don't think there's going to be a mutiny. That's not something that's even close to happening, because they are going to get relieved. They are going home, so they're just like, thank God. Even if we have to wait another 4 weeks on this stupid Hulk, it's not going to do that. What you will see, conscientious objectives, and especially, you're going to have massive, I think, retention rate issues. Okay. So enlistment is when you join the Army or the Navy. And retention is when your original contract is up, then you re-enlist for another 2 years or another 4 years. I think you're just going to see a lot of people not re-enlisting. So there might be a retention problem. But that, of course, it is kind of too optimistic, because recruiting rates are up, because the economic conditions absolutely suck here. So it's
like economic blackmail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or bribery, however you want to look at it.
Well, you join for you join for the socialist programs in order to go enforce capitalism everywhere else. But it's a lot of people and a lot of other channels and people who I really like that are kind of like aligned with your podcast and my media space as well keep talking about the decline of the U.S. empire. I was like, but there's still so much inertia behind it. Just because we in our little on the left zone see how stupid and how brutalized service members are by the system, that an 18-year-old doesn't see that. They're not really experiencing that, so there'll always be fresh new recruits, especially as college and healthcare and everything else becomes more and more unaffordable. So yes, the U.S. empire, while failing at wars, will be able to maintain its military presence. Of course, that's failing. Our entire defense industrial base is predicated on conditions of warfare that no longer exist. So it's not going to be effective, but we're still going to have it.
Right. Yeah. I'm someone who, you and I don't see eye to eye on with this person on every issue, but I think his analysis can be very helpful. John Mearsheimer was basically saying it doesn't really matter if they're military victories or not. That doesn't really affect U.S. hegemony. So that was an interesting point.
Yeah, we'll see. I tend to really like his analysis for sure. It's just what I just from looking at this from a military perspective. Yeah, we're still going to have bases, we're still going to have strike groups and carrier fleets, but this really just shows to every other military analyst on the planet who's either an adversary or an ally is going to be like, okay, they ain't what they used to be. So of course, ton of inertia. Hegemony is not going away anytime soon, but this is just racking up defeat after defeat, which do have geopolitical consequences going forward. Global war on terror, now whatever intervention, maybe Cuba, maybe Ecuador is going to happen next in Latin America, and that's not going to go well either.
Right. Yeah, Ali Vargas, who's been on the show, said something about Trump is taking out his losses in Iran on Latin America, or at least trying to.
Well, I think the we're still not really sure what happened with the Maduro raid, but whatever happened gave him a lot of confidence in, this one and done, special operations mission. And that's kind of like the whole point, and why I hate, as someone who spent the most formative years of my life in Joint Special Operations Command, I hate the whole veneration of operators, right? It started in the Vietnam War as a cope to be like, look how many people the Rangers and the SEALs and the Green Berets are killing. Yeah, okay, but this is like the imperial insanity. You saw the same thing during the Rhodesian Bush War when we were absolutely losing, but we were still talking about but the Rhodesians were talking about how many people they were killing. Well, killing people doesn't win wars.
Exactly, right.
Achieving your objectives wins wars, which we didn't do in Vietnam. The Rhodesians didn't do it in the Bush War, and we're certainly not doing it now.
Yeah, they're just trying to distract people with sadism.
Yeah, look how cool the Navy SEALs are. Do you want to be one?
Right.
Not that, again, special operations people are not the main effort. Right. They're a supporting element. And so when you start thinking they're the main effort, it's like with the Maduro raid, it's just absolutely insane.
So one thing I want to ask you, last thing, because I know you're busy and you've been generous with your time, but you sent me this So here is a post from the White House, right? An Instagram post. It says
They
American
posted this. They posted
shipbuilding.
this. Yeah, sorry. They posted this right. It's literally slopaganda. They posted this right as this San Diego story was breaking with the military families. So the White House puts out this AI slop. It says American shipbuilding. There's a lot of things going on. First of all, they're talking about commercial vessels, but for some reason you have battleships that don't exist. First of all, battleships became irrelevant in the Second World War. That's why no one has built them since. And some of the ships are facing the wrong way. Yeah, sorry, you can keep reading the caption.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. So it says, restoring America's maritime dominance. Today, President Trump signed a national security presidential memorandum to decisively usher in a new maritime golden age, expand commercial shipbuilding capacity, build a resilient workforce, and revitalize a crucial industry.
So this is really embarrassing for a lot of different reasons. So this is meant to revitalize American shipping. So you guys might not be familiar with the Jones Act.
We just had on Sal from What's Happening in Shipping to talk about it. But please do talk about it, because not everyone who watched this will have watched that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Jones Act is basically a merchant marine act that went into effect in 1920, I believe. And it's a U.S. federal law. It basically requires that all goods moved by water between U.S. ports, so like from Miami to New Orleans, are owned, built, and crewed by American workers, and they also fly the U.S. flag. Well, that's supposed to, and it's supposed to like encourage domestic shipping and employ people. It's kind of like a quasi. It's part of like one of those like social benefit things that they were trying to push in that era of American politics. Kind of, it's had its own problem. Like it's super problematic for like Puerto Rico and Hawaii and stuff like that. But anyways, since this happened, there's been a waiver for the Jones Act, which is a temporary exemption granted by the U.S. government that allows foreign flagged ships who don't have American sailors, who are not crewed by, which were most likely not built in the United States, to carry the same cargo between U.S. ports. Yeah. Normally, of course, the Jones Act strictly requires that not to happen. First of all, there's a number of reasons behind it. There's a national defense element. You don't want a bunch of random ships. You want to limit as much foreign traffic into your ports as possible for smuggling, for blackmail, stuff like that. And it's about oversights and tariffs and stuff like that. But it's been suspended because we need as much stuff coming into the United States for supply chain issues. So they're talking about maritime dominance, with this like American exceptionalism AI slop, while doing the exact opposite. Like we're reinvigorating them, but you're repealing this act meant to do that same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also bad for national security too. So it's just absolutely unhinged.
Wow. Well, Greg, anything else you want to say before we hop off? And this has been great as always.
Not really. I'm currently running for Congress on a third-party platform in Texas District 31. And we're going to really try and stir some stuff up because we're not doing the two-party thing anymore. And even if that makes you uncomfortable, this is a district where a Democrat has and can never win. So we're trying something different. So you may as well just get on board. So to see you there. StokerforTexas.com is our website. And if you're interested in more of my analysis, you can go to rfemedia.com, where we do a whole in-depth analysis on all this and the impending Cuba operation. So thanks so much.
Oh yeah. When's that going to be? I gotta really release my Cuban 5 interview. That was great that I did with one of the Cuban 5 members.
Oh, that's awesome.
The 5 heroes, as they call them in Cuba. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Greg, and come back soon, and good luck with everything.
All right. Cheers, y'all. See you around.
Bye. All right. This has been a great show. Wow. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much to all the guests. There may be some Patreon here, so maybe this will apply, which is that if you want to see this full thing, you can go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, it's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Also, if you're more into YouTube, you can become YouTube members at youtube.com by hitting join. Yeah. But again, we really love Patreon because we get to keep more of that money, and no one is getting rich from the show. I assure you. We have to pay people. I mean, we need to pay people. That's a good thing because we live in the capitalist world system. So Really appreciate if you guys become Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show at $5 a month, which is less than 25 cents a day, Monday through Friday. So it's not even 7 days a week. You get access to extended interviews, bonus content. If you can't swing that, though, and you still want to be part of the Katie Halper Show community, you can become a member at $1 a month. That's $12 a year. Everyone should do that. That would be great. Let me just read and thank the recent Patreons that we've gotten since, let's see. Nate, if you could message me, what was the date of Tuesday so I can figure out the new Patreons? What was the date of this Tuesday? It was August what? Let's see. I could also, okay, August 7th. August 11th. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So since August 11th, I want to thank, because we thanked the other ones before that. Oh, not that many. Thank you, Marco. And thank you, Andrew. Wow. That's it. Come on. No more. Let's get those Patreons up. Even if guys, you can do a $1 a month. I know I believe in you guys. I know a lot of you can afford $12 a year to support this show, to pay people's salaries. I know that you can do it. So please do to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Even again at $1 a month. That's $12 a year. $12 a year. That's like one fancy drink a year. Okay, let me read the super chats. Always thankful for those. So 440 Jules UNC alert. Thank you for that. Don't know what that means, but I like it. Stoke for Stoker. That's great. And again, yeah, please do. We would love some more Patreons. Wow. All right, let's do it. By the next week's show, I would love to have some more. Again, no one's getting rich off of this. Yeah, $12 a year. Literally, you pay $12 a year and you get to support this show. And you get your name read. We thank you online. Isn't that exciting? You don't get the access that you get at $5, but you get to sleep well at night. And I think that's a great thing to do. Sleeping well at night is a great thing to do. I've been having trouble sleeping through the night. It's terrible. Oh, sorry. I did not mean to highlight that disgusting comment at all. Yeah, I don't know if other people have had problems sleeping through the night, but I really don't like it. I like to have 8 to 9 hours, and I haven't had that lately. All right, that's me sharing. Not really that interesting. Thank you, Nate. Thank you to everyone who came to the show. And we will see you on Tuesday at 7 p.m. EST. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.